Hi, neighbor. I'm so glad that you've decided to pay me a visit at the Fourth Wall neighborhood. Now, I'd like to talk to you about a film today. Now, do you know what a film is? In a way, you're watching one right now. A film is just a series of still images put together so quickly that they appear to be moving right before your eyes. If you put that together with a recording of sound, well, then you have a film. Now, film can come in many forms, be it like this one over the internet, on a television set, on a phone, or like back when I was young, in an actual theater. The film I want to talk to you about is about a very special person, Fred Rogers, star of the PBS television program Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Stick around, won't you? A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is a 2019 film directed by Marielle Heller, which chronicles a very particular moment in time when a writer for Esquire magazine is tasked with doing essentially a puff piece on Fred Rogers. The film is inspired by an actual 1998 article written in Esquire magazine titled, "Can You Say Hero?" Now, I say inspired by because the events in the film are not 100% based on true events. The name of the writer is changed, for starters. However, the essence and influence of Fred Rogers, the man, shines through untarnished. The film begins with a meticulous recreation of Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. The level of detail goes from the little toy piano music to model buildings and cars sputtering by, all the way down to the slightly fuzzy PBS-style resolution and the old 4:3 television aspect ratio. We are then introduced to the film's version of Fred Rogers, as played by the incomparable Tom Hanks. Now, Hanks as Rogers then introduces us in a very Mr. Rogers way to our protagonist, Lloyd Vogel. Now, make no mistake, even though the essence of Mr. Rogers permeates every inch of the picture, we are experiencing it through the eyes of Lloyd Vogel. Now, we continue on to learn that Vogel is a writer for Esquire magazine, he is married to a loving wife, and that they have recently had a baby together. We also learn that Vogel has a very antagonistic relationship with his own father, as played by the great Chris Cooper, who just seems destined to forever play very flawed and broken individuals. Finally, we, the audience, get the sense that Vogel himself uses his job to flee the stresses of his family life and the realization that he may just be as broken as his father. This then leads him to meet the beacon of kindness that is Fred Rogers. It is in these conversations between Vogel and Rogers where this film really shines. Now, their conversations dabble with topics that range from Rogers' seemingly perfect saint-like persona to his ability to explain very difficult and heavy topics to the smallest of children. Over the years, Rogers' program occasionally touched on topics like death, divorce, assassination, race relations, and nuclear war. He gave children more credit than most would, that they are smart and that they have the ability to understand. Rogers also seemed to live by the credo of be kind in every way you can. On a personal note, I feel as though that we currently live in an age where we starve for this kind of honesty and we starve for kindness towards each other. While watching the film, I felt a weird metaphor forming where Vogel represented a bleak cynicism of a 2019 world as he crashed into the unwavering optimism of hope of the times past that is Fred Rogers. Suffice it to say, today's world would do well to live by Mr. Rogers' example. The film also touches lightly on Mr. Rogers' faith, as he was indeed an ordained minister. Rogers has said that he considered that the space between the television set and the eyes of his viewers to be a sacred space. Now, Rogers was deeply religious. However, he never delivered a directly religious message on his program. Instead, he lived and spoke by example, exemplifying his faith by his actions of kindness, honesty, and overall acceptance. Now, it is here where I want to stop talking about the plot, because you honestly owe it to yourself to experience it firsthand. Let's just say that Vogel begins his journey to profile Mr. Rogers, but ultimately it is Rogers that helps Vogel learn more about himself. On a technical level, I really have nothing to complain about. This is a relatively simple production with a wonderful eye for detail when recreating the old PBS look of the program. Every performance is on point from top to bottom. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Tom Hanks once again reminds us of why he is a national treasure. It didn't take very long for me to stop seeing Tom Hanks and to start seeing Fred Rogers. Even as the credits rolled, I was jarred to see images of the real Rogers and remember that he was not just the character that we have spent the last 2 or so hours with, but a real man who made the world just that much better. If I had any criticism for this film, it would always land in the scenes where Mr. Rogers is absent. He's the reason that we are watching, and the film slows down whenever he's gone. It's not that the other characters are dull, per se, but there is a reason that Mr. Rogers and Tom Hanks are who they are. There also are times when Vogel can come off as truly unlikable, which can make for some frustrating moments where waiting for the inevitable moment when he turns it around. This is most likely intentional since it is Vogel who has the character-changing arc in the film. Finally, some of the external conflict can seem a bit shoehorned in, as if they needed to give Vogel more problems for him to suss out when he finally meets Rogers. These issues are minor in the grand scheme of things and didn't really hurt my overall experience. This movie also is counting on the fact that you already know and love Mr. Rogers and his brand of simple, direct, quiet wisdoms. In other words, if you have no previous connection to this man, this film might be less effective for you. So let's be honest here. You already know if this movie's for you. I mean, did you grow up watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? Are you curious about the man behind the sweaters and the puppets? Do you want to experience a story well told and feel your heart grow 3 sizes in the process? Well, then this movie should be on your list. In terms of your experience, I'm not certain that you need to see this on a big screen, per se, as the beauty of the film is in its message and less in its special effects, but please seek it out if what you've heard piques your interest even a little. Don't tell anyone. I might have shed a tear or two in that dark theater. Now, I'm just waiting for the big screen film based on Bob Ross and The Joy of Painting to get the real PBS cinematic universe off the ground. I would give A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood a solid 8 Lands of Make-Believe out of 10. As a side note, you'll notice that this isn't exactly a biopic about the life of Mr. Rogers. If you are curious to know more about him and his life in a more focused, less Hollywood way, please seek out the wonderful recent documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor, that made the rounds a year or so ago. You'll be glad you did. Thank you again for spending this time with us here at the Fourth Wall Neighborhood. Please take just a second to give us a like and subscribe to keep up to date with reviews and news on pop culture and film here at the Fourth Wall. My name is Danny, this is the Fourth Wall, and always remember, you are a very special person. There is only one like you in the whole world. There has never been anyone exactly like you before, and there never will be again. Only you. And people can like you exactly as you are. See you next time.